Shields up, Ironbreakers. Welcome back to Monster Hunter, and today we're once again going to be talking about Monster Hunter Wilds. Now, recently I was invited by Ratatoskr to join him on his Yggdrasil podcast, wherein we naturally talked about some of the recent happenings like the Game Awards and, obviously, Monster Hunter Wilds. Now, one of the things that I realized as I was talking to Ratatoskr and exploring some of the ideas and almost like wishes that I have for Monster Hunter Wilds is that I really wanted to put some of these ideas in a separate video that was a little bit more consumable, because naturally the podcast itself is going to be 3 hours long, because that's just the way these things usually go. But I would still highly recommend you guys check it out. And for those of you that are like, oh man, 3 hours is just too much, Ratatoskr, like I usually do, goes ahead and he has chapters on here, as you can see. So if you just want to listen to the Monster Hunter Wild segment, you'll be able to very easily navigate to there. And there is a big, lengthy discussion about Monster Hunter Wilds. But like I said, when I was talking to Ratatoskr about this, I was like, you know what? I really want to talk more about these ideas that I have for this game, and that is the reason for the existence of this video. Now, before we get to talking about some of the specific things, I also wanted to address something, which is whether or not Monster Hunter Wilds is going to take place in the new world. Because that is one of the things that I mentioned in my previous speculation video, that I feel like most likely this game is going to take place in the new world. And the reasoning behind that is because if you guys pay attention here, you'll notice that in this particular shot of the official trailer, this is on the official trailer, as you can see right here, you'll notice that our hunter has a slinger. This is a technology that was only present in Monster Hunter World. And some people are going to say, well, who cares? You know, maybe this is just technology that became widely accepted by most hunters. Why was it not in Rise or Sunbreak then? Okay. Good that we got that part out of the way. So this is something that was used by the hunters in the new world, and then on top of it you also have a scout fly cage right here on his belt. So these are just two very quick elements that kind of give you an idea like, oh, this might be taking place in the new world, because they are using technology that usually the hunters in the new world were using as well. On top of it, you also have us mounting this creature. And if you guys remember, once again, mounting in terms of being as a mode of transportation was something that was initially used in Monster Hunter World as well, with the feature, I forget what it was called, it wasn't Tail Raiders, because was it Tail Raiders? It might have been Tail Raiders, because there's one of them that is the one where you sent the palicos out to go get stuff for you, and then there's the other one that you actually got to use in the terrain. I think it might have been the Tail Raiders, but anyway, you guys get the idea. Mounting was also first introduced as a transportation method in Monster Hunter World. So that's like already 4 things. But on top of that, there was another reasoning, and that is if we pay attention to the font that is used, this font right here for the word Monster Hunter is also the font that is used in Monster Hunter World. So that's another thing that just kind of like, oh, another little tidbit that seems to implicate that this takes place in the new world. But another thing that has happened since then is the official Monster Hunter account over on Twitter has actually tweeted the following: "Hunters, keep your skills sharp ahead of the arrival of Monster Hunter Wilds in 2025, as we invite you to join us as we return to world." Return to world being very much a hashtag. Now, there's a lot of reasons why the official Monster Hunter account might be tweeting about Monster Hunter World. There's been kind of like a community movement recently in 2023 where people have been going back to Monster Hunter World because they played the crap out of Monster Hunter Rise and Sunbreak, and some people wanted to have a more, slow, deliberate hunting experience like the ones we have in Monster Hunter World, and they've gone back. There's also naturally the visual aspect of the game, which is much more, much higher visual fidelity and all of that stuff. So basically, there's also been a community movement to go back to it. But I think that when you have the official Monster Hunter account starting like a campaign, going like, oh, join us as we return to world, as kind of like a preparation for people to then jump into Monster Hunter Wilds. They also say it's time to relive the hunts and journey we've taken since 2018 as we look forward to the next generation. I haven't actually seen all of the return to world information here. I'm assuming this is like some kind of a campaign or something. Yeah, how goes the Hunter? Thank you for your amazing reaction to the recent reveal Monster Hunter Wilds. Can't wait to head into the wilds with you in 2025. In the meantime, however, there's plenty of hunting to be done. To celebrate the reveal of Monster Hunter Wilds, Monster Hunter World is currently discounted to its lower priced ever on Steam, which, by the way, buy this game. If you've never played it, buy this game. Buy it now. All hunters welcome. Return to the World is a celebration of Monster Hunter World. Let's welcome new players who join us in sail and relive an epic journey with those of you that have previously set out from Astera and adventured through the ancient forest and beyond. Over the coming weeks, we'll be hosting weekly community live streams. That's another thing that they said they're going to be doing. If we look here on Twitter, they talk about this as well. New community stream as part of our Return to World community celebration. We're hosting a new weekly stream as we retread our journey through World as a fresh hunter on PC. Watch and hunt with us live this Thursday, and then they've been tweeting also some more stuff, like in here you can see some more material about Monster Hunter World. This is a game from 2018. Okay, so they're really putting a big campaign behind this. And to me, what this speaks is that people over at Capcom, they want you to be aware that, like, hey, World exists, and maybe you should play World before you play Monster Hunter Wilds. Almost as if playing World is going to better prepare you for Monster Hunter Wilds, not just in terms of like your hunting skills, but also in terms of you being more aware of the lore, of things like, hey, we're in the new world, you know, that type of stuff. So all of these things put together make me really just be like, bro, this is 100% going to be in the new world. It's just the way that it is. Now, you guys might be wondering, Rurikhan, why is Davi Vasc on screen right now? And Davi Vasc is actually released earlier today as I'm recording this video. He released a new video, which is the breakdown of the Monster Hunter Wilds trailer music. Now, I'm not going to be playing his whole video. I'm going to be linking to his video in the description box down below as well. I would highly recommend you check it out because it also reinforces a lot of the things that I mentioned on my first speculation video. So one of the things that Davi points out is that when he started listening to the music, he was like, oh, this music is so strange, which was the same thing that threw me off. Because from the very beginning of the trailer, I was like, this is Monster Hunter. But then the music kicked in and I was like, wait, what? This music's not Monster Hunter. And that was the exact same reaction that Davi Vasc had. But not just that. If you guys remember, when I was talking about the stuff in this trailer, I mentioned the words advanced ancient civilization because a lot of the motifs, I talked about the sound that these letters make as they show up on screen. I talked about the sound of the music, which I don't even have the proper words to describe music, but Davi did it very well, which is it's got a lot of synth stuff on it. It gives you a lot of sci-fi vibes, which again, just kind of like is something that is somewhat alien to Monster Hunter. Usually Monster Hunter is much more traditional fantasy music. And in this case, we have a lot of sci-fi vibes, alien themes, even brought up stuff like Xenojiva, Safi Jiva, and whatnot in his analysis of the music. And again, I would highly recommend you guys check this out because I love Davi Vasc's content, so I would just recommend it anyways. But yeah, so that was another thing that kind of reinforces my whole theory about, this thing taking place in a location where there's potentially ancient civilization and all of that and new world and etc, etc, etc. Now I also had this video here because it was going to showcase a little bit of Guiding Lands gameplay, because my theory is that the world in which this game is going to take place, which again I think it is the new world, but I'm talking about the location in which this takes place. I believe that this is going to be full-on open world. And I know that a lot of people are like, well, what does that mean? What exactly is what do you mean by full open world? I'm talking like, I think what Capcom wants to do with this, and this is actually something that after thinking about it quite some time, this is something that I would like to see them try out. What they're going to do with this is potentially you just have one map, one massive map that is going to gradually unlock as you advance through the different quests and as you advance through the story and the basic narrative and all of that stuff, right? Because very much in the same way that as you advance through quests, they unlock new maps for you. In this situation, it's going to be as you advance through quests, certain cataclysmic events are going to be taking place. We already see the dynamic shifting of weather and all of these things. certain cataclysmic events will take place that will open new zones for us to navigate, or reveal that we can get to new zones by doing certain things during certain events. But the whole point of it is, I believe this is going to be one huge open map that is going to gradually open up as you move through the game. And now I really want them to flesh out this open world to the point where you don't really, fast travel to the hub. You just walk in or ride in, however you want to, look at it. You basically physically travel to the location of wherever the hub happens to be in this open world, and that's how you go there. And as a matter of fact, one of the things that I don't want to see, at least for 80% of the game, I don't want fast travel. I know that a lot of people are like, well, what do you mean? What? We need fast travel. What the hell? It's like, no, you don't. No, you don't. One of the things that I've always mentioned when it comes to open world games, one of the things that a lot of developers always forget and they don't do a particularly good job at when it comes to an open world game is giving you a good method of traversal. Good examples that I've mentioned previously, particularly here on the channel. I did a whole video talking about why Spider-Man 2's traversal is so absolutely phenomenal, because it's kind of like a minigame onto itself. Web slinging, shooting yourself, closer to buildings and gaining momentum and doing all of these things make the traversal in that game amazing. That's not the only game that does good traversal. There are a lot of games that do fantastic traversal, but when you look at this trailer that we're looking right now, you will notice that, again, as I've mentioned this before, the mount takes center stage. This is Capcom saying you're going to have a mount so that you can navigate this wide open field that we have. Now, a common mistake that a lot of teams do when they're making an open world is they just slap a horse on you and they're like, okay, here you go. The horse makes you move 50% faster, giga, mega open area, go have fun. And that's actually not fun. I know that a lot of people are going to come at me and be like, well, what do you mean it's not fun? It's like when you have a huge world and the only thing that they give you is something that increases your travel speed by a little bit and it's just a static % increase and that's it. That's actually not fantastic. That's not what Spider-Man does. That's not what games that do good traversal do. So I'm hoping that with this mount, Capcom introduces the concept of active traversal. Now, one of the best examples that I have to give you on this would be the recent implementation of Dragonflight in World of Warcraft. I know a lot of people don't really play World of Warcraft, so this is going to be kind of mute. But let's just put it like this. Usually when you're flying in a video game, particularly in an MMORPG, the concept of flying is basically you are swimming in the air, right? You're basically just like in the air and you move in any direction that you want, but you're basically like swimming. There's no momentum to it. There's nothing, right? Now, if you want to do that right, you want to implement stuff like momentum, which is something that World of Warcraft did. And by the way, I'm well aware that the way that World of Warcraft did it is it just ripped off the mounts from Guild Wars 2. It's just World of Warcraft is probably going to be easier for people to understand. But the concept is this. You have a mount. And you're able to flap the wings of the mount and he goes up. But there's physics to it. So you have to either flap the wings again so that it can keep going up, or you have to kind of nosedive and start gliding and doing things almost like a Rathalos did right there, right? Realistic flight. And it's got all of these mechanics where you can gain speed boosts, you can go down and you recover your stamina, and then you can flap your wings, go up, and all of these things, right? But in this case, we're talking about a mount that the only real flight capabilities that it shows is gliding. Now, what I would like to see in this mount is I would like to see it gradually introduce active traversal mechanics. Now, we see one mechanic of active traversal in Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak in the form of the Palamute. See, whenever you're in the Palamute, you can hit the thing to, I think it was the right trigger, because I didn't really use Palamutes. I always played with 2 Palicos. But you jump on the Palamute and then you hit the right trigger and your Palamute goes and then he darts off. And that's all well and good, but that's extremely limiting and it prevents you from actually getting into a flow state. Now, I know that not a lot of people are going to be familiar with the concept of a flow state, but a flow state is, say, for instance, you jump into the guiding lands and you're just in there and you're just hunting and you're listening maybe to some music in the background and you're just in the zone. Right? You're just in there and you're hunting and everything is just flowing. You're killing every monster pretty much effortlessly. it almost feels like you're not playing the game as much as you are a part of the game. That is what a flow state is, when you're just in the zone. Now, the problem with the Palamute speed boost thing is that you can't really get into a flow state with it. And why is that? Because it's a speed boost and then it stops, and then you have to do it again. But every time you do it again, it doesn't naturally flow into another action, because every time you press the thing, your Palamute once again starts like scratching for it, getting ready, and then he pops off again. In order for this to work as a proper active traversal mechanic, the mount is going to need to have mechanics that work almost like the web slinging of Spider-Man. And I know that there's a person, and if that person happens to watch this video, I read a decent chunk of the big essay that he wrote on the Ratatoskr podcast in the comment section. Like, this dude wrote like a giga essay in there talking about the reasons why I was wrong, because like with Spider-Man, you have momentum, and very much with the Dragonflight mechanics, or even the Guild Wars 2 flying mechanics, there's momentum, there's nose diving, there's all of these things. And he was saying that like you can't really do that in a quadrupedal mount. And to that, what I have to say is you can't do it until the moment that somebody does it. Because the reality of it is, you know, the standard of flying a mount in MMORPGs has always been you swim in the air, until the moment that somebody did it different. And I think that there's potential for them to do mechanics in a ground mount that can be as engaging and as interesting as nosedive. I mean, naturally, you're going to have to introduce something like a bit of a stamina system to your mount so that you can't just always be running, right? But you're going to have to introduce also actions to it. You're going to have to do, I don't know exactly what those actions are going to be, right? Because I'm not the most creative person when it comes to that type of stuff. One of the easiest things that I was thinking of is you're going to have to expend some of that stamina to climb up whenever you're on a steep incline, you know, climbing up there. That's going to consume some stamina. But whenever you get on a downward slope, then you can use some type of active mechanic to gain momentum and gain speed and actually recover some of the stamina that you wasted. And then you can use some of that stamina to propel yourself even further. And then there might be things that you get to do throughout the different sections of the world and whatnot that might enable you to gain speed boosts. Like, for instance, maybe they just have, you see those little lizards down there? There were some really tiny lizards in the screen just now. Maybe your mount, as you are running, it can just kind of like nab one of those real quick, and that kind of like energizes it and it goes faster. There's like a million different creative ways that you can come up with, you know, ways to navigate the game. When I'm talking about navigate, I'm not just talking about, you know, oh, so we just get a speed boost or anything like that. No, there needs to be even more interactivity in it than that. Like, for instance, if there's a body of water, maybe your mount is able to hop through tadpoles or something like that, or maybe your mount is able to just like glide through the water. Maybe. You have to do quests to unlock this, by the way. Your mount is not just going to come fully equipped. This would be its own progression system as you are progressing through the game. The very same way that you progress your hunter, that you progress your armor. Actually, your hunter doesn't really progress much. It's usually your gear. But you guys get the idea. The same way that you progress your gear, the same way that you advance anything, you would also be advancing your mount. And that mount now gets new features as to how it is able to navigate the terrain. Another thing would be something super simple. You would now be able to go ahead, because you know you have the basic gliding. We can improve on the gliding, and now your mount can get more forward momentum when gliding, allowing you to actually, you know, almost swoop around with the mount and let you gain more forward momentum. A suggestion that Ratatoskr came up with when I was talking about this, hey, what about if there was preparation elements to this? Like you would have to prepare. So say, for instance, if you know you're fighting a monster, then there's a high chance of you ending up in, you know, fighting this monster near a body of water. Maybe you would have to prepare your mount in base with a couple of resources or something like that. Now your mount for the next 5 hunts or whatever is going to have ease of traveling through water. Again, with an active traversal system that you actually have to press buttons, right? That's cool. A good example of this system is actually present in the trailer itself when you see the mount hopping between rocks, because one of the easiest ways of doing this is just making, it's this thing right here, right? One of the easiest ways of doing this is just making it so that when you do this, it is just an automatic thing. You press it once and you just like pop, pop, pop. But a better way of doing it would be where you actually have to actively press buttons while this is happening in order to ensure that you can gain speed. And I understand there's going to be a lot of people that are going to go like, oh, but I'm lazy, I don't want to engage in any of this. That's fine. Your mount will still have the basic sprint, and you can still do the basic sprint stuff. It's just the people who do engage with it, you're going to go faster. I think that if you work this system properly, you can make it to a point where people will end up navigating the world simply because it's fun. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like the very same way that a lot of people just enjoy web slinging in Spider-Man, you can potentially do the same thing here. And that is one of the things that I would like to see, which is why I said for about 80% of the game, I don't even want to see fast travel to kind of incentivize players to go ahead and navigate the world using this very active traversal system. Now, another thing that would come from this is, and let me actually swap this because I'm sure you guys are sick and tired of watching the trailer on repeat. I'm just going to put some world footage that I've played back in the day. But as I was saying, another thing that I would like to see is with a system like this. So the title of the game is Monster Hunter Wilds. So that means that you're going to be going into an unexplored area, an uncharted area, the wilderness. At least that's what I read into it. Let me know if you feel like I'm reading too much into it, but it just kind of feels like this is a place where we haven't been to before. Unlike when you go to Monster Hunter World, where you're coming to the new world, but there's already been 4 other fleets of hunters that arrived ahead of you. We've been in the new world, I believe, for about 50 years, give or take, right? This zone would be a brand new zone that you're traveling to for the very first time. So the implications of that could be there's actually no camps. Hell, there might not even be a hub, and I'll talk more about that later. So if there's no camps, one of the theories that people have, and actually one of the theories that a lot of people supported, is that instead of you having the full restock options that we've had in Monster Hunter World, Monster Hunter Rise, and Sunbreak, we could just have our mount be a portable camp. Now, if we actually look at the mount, and I'm going to go back to the trailer at this point, if we actually look at the mount, we can see that this mount has a satchel here on the left side, another satchel for a second weapon. I'm not even going to be talking too much about the second weapon thing. I've talked way too much about that in my Theorycrafting video that you guys can check out. But if you notice here on the back, you have a bedroll. Now, bedrolls are usually something that you would use if you have to sleep in the wilderness or something like that, right? So it almost makes sense that this mount acts like a mobile camp. This is just something that you take your mount, and while you're out in the field, your mount acts as a mobile camp, which means that the other satchel that we have there, which actually a little bit further ahead in the trailer, when everything gets dark, there's actually a section where we can see, like here, if you pay attention, it's a little bit too light, but if you pay attention, you can almost make out like there's a vial here, like the same type of vial that you would have in specific consumables and whatnot. So this could be, you know, an additional inventory for you to have a certain amount of consumables beyond the stuff that you can carry on your hunter. So instead of having full-on restock, you get to choose an additional set of stuff that you bring with you to the field with your mount. This could potentially be upgraded later on, but I never, ever, ever want us to have full restocks. And I know there's going to be people that are going to say like, well, Rurikhan, if you don't want restocks, don't use them. And you can go watch the podcast to figure out exactly how me and Ratatoskr feel about people who make that argument. I'm not going to be talking about that here because it's too long-winded and it's whatever. Let's just say that you're wrong and you should feel ashamed of yourself. Now, continuing onwards. So your mount would act as like a temporary camp, so to speak, an additional set of resources that you can bring into the hunt. And then what happens is I want there to be meaningful choices whenever you are in a hunt. Like say you're hunting a Rathalos and things are getting rough and you're running low on resource and you're like, okay, I'm not sure if I can make it through this hunt. This is when you have to make a decision. Okay, I'm not going to be able to defeat this Rathalos, or I'm going to risk it all and I'm going to try to defeat him anyway. And things might go very wrong if you go that route, but that is a decision that you get to make. And as you make that decision, if you want to go and restock, you have to haul ass all the way back to wherever the hub happens to be, which, by the way, I have another really cool idea about that. We're going to get into that. So that's going to be a decision. And when you go there, one of the things that Ratatoskr suggested is like, okay, so maybe you lose track of the monster and you have to retrack the monster somehow. That would be an interesting way of doing it. I said you could just straight up, the monster might just leave if you abandon the fight like that. Who knows? So it becomes a risk-reward type of situation where you have to weigh in the pros and cons of, making a strategic retreat. I just want there to be an active choice in the way in which you are hunting the monster, and I want that to be a decision, as opposed to just like, no, I just have infinite resources, I can do whatever I want, and nothing matters, okay? That's what I'm trying to get at. I want us to go back to the impacts of actually being out in the field and hunting, as opposed to just like, no, it's a boss fight, it's all it is. And I know that a lot of people prefer the boss fight aspect of it, and I kind of feel like for those of you that prefer the boss fight aspect, you just had Monster Hunter Rise and Sunbreak, which are most definitely more tuned towards having boss fights than necessarily the concept of being a monster hunter. And the point that I'm making is we can have both things. We can have one game that focuses more on the aspects of monster hunting, and you can have another game that focuses more on the aspects of boss fighting, which again, this is something that me and Ratatoskr talked about in that podcast, and I think is very important, because it's like, I'm not fighting you, those people that want it to be more boss fight stuff. I'm not fighting you. I like that aspect of the game too. I love Monster Hunter Rise and I love Monster Hunter Sunbreak. But I think we should both get a turn. Like, now it's my turn, and we get to experience more hunting mechanics. Then when the next game comes along, that's going to be something more in lines with Rise and Sunbreak, it's going to be your turn. And we're going to go balls deep, Devil May Cry style, all of that stuff. And I think that's fair, because this is kind of like where Monster Hunter started, and a lot of us do miss the more hunting-centric aspects of the game, which have kind of like, not been as prevalent in Rise Sunbreak, where you always know where the monster is. It's just more of a boss fight than anything else. So that's just, again, another thing when it comes to those situations. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit more about the concept of the hub, because there was a commenter in one of my videos recently. His name, I believe, was Gambit X3. And he mentioned, what if our hub was an airship? And I was like, I am so into that, because it just really reinforces the whole aspect that we've been talking about. Like, we're Monster Hunter Wilds, we're going into the wilderness, uncharted territory, all of this stuff. It doesn't actually make sense if there's like an established hub there from the get-go. Now, if you've played Generations Ultimate, you'll be aware that in Generations Ultimate, when you start going into G rank and all that stuff in the single player version of the game, even though there's not really G rank in single player, there's like the second level of high rank, whatever you want to call it. You guys know what I'm talking about. When you go there, you go to an airship. Actually, it's 3 airships like collated into one unit. And it's really cool. Even though in that game, it's just scenery. But wouldn't it be amazing if in Monster Hunter Wilds, your hub is an airship, and you, as like the lead hunter, the A-list hunter, whatever you want to call it, you get to actually make decisions as to where we position the airship in the grand scheme of things. I don't want it to be static. I want it to be an element of gameplay. Hell, the more I started thinking about this, the more I started thinking, what if you can upgrade the ship? What if this airship, which is essentially your mobile base, you get to choose the upgrades that you make on it, and that basically dictates certain aspects of your hunt. It dictates how fast you can reposition the ship in certain situations. It dictates like what type of support the ship can present to you. Like, maybe you can even request airstrikes from the ship when you're fighting a particularly dangerous monster. You're like, oh, I didn't call in an airstrike from my mobile airship. Maybe that's a little bit too much fantasy, maybe too much gimmicky. But you guys get the idea. I think it would be great if instead of having just, how you have the house element when it comes to Monster Hunter World Iceborne, you have this house that you can completely customize. What if you just get to customize the entire base? You get to customize how it looks. You get to customize what it does. What are the passive effects that it does? And all of that. And you get to, it's a whole new tactical element of the hunt. Not to mention that I just like the concept of running around, and not running around, but being on an airship that you can kind of like take places and whatnot. And it's just like the moment he said this, like my brain just lit up with the possibilities. I was like, bro, an airship as a hub. That's insane. That'd be absolutely amazing. And again, you can reposition it. You're not really stuck in one place. And it just makes so much sense. I really hope they do that. Oh my God, I'd be so excited if they did that. But yeah, these are some of the concepts and some of the ideas that I have for Monster Hunter Wilds. Let me know what type of things you'd like to see and whatnot in the comment section down below. Maybe I'll do a follow-up video. But before we end, I wanted to go ahead and touch up on one more thing, which is something that I've seen requested in a lot of videos, and that is, should the next game have crossplay/cross progression? Now, I definitely think that this isn't even a question. It definitely should have it. We definitely want it. It's definitely the feature that's been most requested, which is why I'm mentioning in this video. Hear that, Jono? Make sure to forward that to the team so that they know. Literally everybody. Like, it's one of the most discussed topics in my comment section. Cross save and cross progression. Now, what I would like to say about this is I've played a decent chunk of Exoprimal, as you guys will be aware, and Exoprimal isn't really there yet when it comes to all of these features, because you see, Exoprimal, it utilizes the Capcom ID system, and it does support crossplay. This means that whenever you do matchmaking, you could instantly matchmake. If you're on PlayStation, you matchmake with people from Xbox, you matchmake with people from PC, you matchmake with tons and tons and tons and tons of different people across the 3 different platforms where the game is. But that's where it ends. Currently, I don't know if currently it is supported or not. I know that the team is working on it, so maybe it is already supported at this point. But I know that the team was working on supporting cross-play party making, because you can't do it right now. You can just, get match made with people from the other platforms, but you can't actively form a party. So if you have friends in Xbox and you're playing on PlayStation, you can't form a party. Same thing for PC. So that part of it is still rough, but I'm assuming that this is something that they can do. The technology definitely exists and it is there. There might be some red tape to cut through when it comes to the different platforms and all of that jazz, but that definitely needs to be a thing. And the other thing is most definitely cross progression. We need to have cross progression across these platforms for people that want to hey, I played on PlayStation, but now I bought a PC. I want to bring over my save. All of that stuff. I hope it's there. I know that Exoprimal currently doesn't have it. So my speculation is crossplay, 99% sure it's going to be there. Crossplay parties, not 100%, but I'm assuming if they can fix that in Exoprimal, then probably we'll see it as well. It feels like Exoprimal was their first test bed when it came to testing these crossplay, cross progression functionalities. So it's just a matter of them refining it in that game. And I'm sure they're going to at least try to do something with Monster Hunter Wilds to support all of these features. But anyway, that is going to be it for this video. If you guys enjoyed it, hit the like button, subscribe, bell notification icon, all of that jazz. Thank you all very much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay strong, stay safe. Peace out.